Noreik, that's cool.
What up?
My
What up?
friend, welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's great to be here with you virtually, of course.
Absolutely. So, for those who don't know, Noreik, that's cool, is like a culture fuzz vet. He's like an OG. He's been with us since the beginning, and I was checking out the Breaking Bread episode that we did on Culture Fuzz like a year ago,
Yeah.
and I was like,
Yeah.
holy crap, so much has changed. Like,
It's
it's
insane, huh?
crazy. Well, man, so a lot has changed for you since then. Like, it was funny because I was listening to it and we were actually making jokes about coronavirus, like, because it hasn't fully happened yet. Like, the whole pandemic didn't happen. And I
hmm
was like,
hmm
wow, this was like fully the beginning stages. You still had your dreads, you just
hmm
came out with triangles.
Yeah.
So, man, like, it's great to have you on so we can catch up and kind of talk about the evolution.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's crazy what 1 year can do. That if that's what we've realized, it's that we had no idea the type of impact that this whole COVID thing was really going to have on our normalcy, I should say. And yeah, as an artist or just as an individual in general, we had to pivot. This is a very historic time, and nothing is going to be the same,
Oh
after
my
this.
God,
So
man. And pivot is the word. I feel like pivot, I've been using that hard this past year. Like,
yeah, it's
I was
part of my
just,
vocabulary now.
yeah, because that's what you got to do. Like, the homegirl, she just started her channel and, she had a mini breakdown because I guess like the footage didn't come out how she wanted to. And I was like, girl, you got to pivot. Like, where there's
Mm-hmm.
no crying in baseball. Like, we only come
No.
in with answers. Like,
Yeah, that's it. Solution based only.
so speaking of pivot, gosh, I feel like there's so much to talk about. But first things first, I want to talk about the obvious. I feel like it's just a new you, a new version of you.
Yes.
For those who don't know, Noreik Thascool you had dreads for like for how long?
Um,
Like how many
yes,
years?
about 4 years. It
Four
was about
years?
4 years. Yeah. So just started getting shoulder length, and prior to that, I grew out my hair. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me just close this door real quick. Um, Prior to that, I grew out my hair for about 7 years total. So, I had like a flat top, and then I decided to take it to the dreads, and it was part of a journey of finding myself and uh, growing. Like my hair was a representation of me, like as it was growing, as I was discovering who I was and figuring out what are the things that I believe in, what are the things that culture is telling me to believe in,
Mm.
what are the things that uh, there's just been so much metamorphosis, so much change that comes with hair, and anybody who grows dreads know that there's energy that locks in there. That's why it's called locks. Like, you're locking in this energy from the sun, energy from your peers, energy from yourself,
Wow.
energy from the things that you do and the ways that you react to them. And I just really, yeah, it was just a journey. And when the pandemic hit, um, I started to feel that journey was coming to an end, because after this, it was like everything that I was doing when I was growing my dreads was me preparing for a time like this.
Yeah. That's interesting. That's crazy. Did you realize that you were preparing for a time like this, or did it just like come
No,
full circle?
it came full circle. Even all the music that we made, all the positivity that we put out there. And when I mean we, I mean like people in the community as well
Right.
as you know, we were never for all the club music, all the just turn up for no reason type
Mm-hmm.
of songs. We were creating songs that were about following your passions.
It's very conscious, very
Getting
conscious
very
music.
conscious, getting better
Mm-hmm.
at who you are as an individual, while we were getting better at who we were as an individual. And I had a great conversation with Noah James and Cam Gnarly, and we were talking about our music, and we were saying that our music was built for this kind of time, for
Man.
when people are unaware of what's going to happen next, and they have to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. They have to pivot, our new word. They have to change the way that they're operating. And how can you do that? How could you feel inspired to do that? Well, the type of music that we were making um, really adds to that. And I've heard from a lot of people who've listened to our stuff during the pandemic that they appreciate it even more.
That's
And
beautiful.
that's really when it hit me. I was like, oh, okay, I was doing all of that growing. I was making mistakes. I was failing, but I was also taking those lessons and those learnings and applying it to my life and starting to change how I operated, how I perceived myself and others. And yeah, that was like the beginning of the pandemic, and or at least the beginning of
Yeah.
the end, I should say, of
Yeah.
who I was before. I was like, okay, I'm in my final chapter.
That's crazy because it's like I believe that, each of us have many, many evolutions. Each of us have many, many lives that we live in one single lifetime. So it's really cool to understand these evolutions, especially through artists, because you can hear it through their music and stuff like that. But I want to come back to that because I'm really intrigued about how you're talking about your hair, because one thing I was realizing is that I don't hear a lot of hair journey stories coming from men, like especially
Mm,
Black men. Like it's
mhm.
always like, women are doing the big chop or they're starting their natural hair journey and stuff like that. And me, when I did that, I understood, well, I didn't understand until I started doing it. Like, wow, this is a part of my identity. This is psychological. This is
Yeah,
emotional. And
yeah.
that's just me loving my curls.
Mhm.
So, with you, as a Black man and having that relationship with your hair or having a relationship with your hair at all, like, can you describe that? Like, from the flat top to the dreads to now, you got a fade, you got a nice fade now.
Yeah, yeah, I didn't get a haircut, so that's why I'm rocking my hat.
Hey.
But yeah, it's really interesting. As I was finding myself and discovering, um, my hair journey is associated with my music. And
Mm,
when I started having the flat top, I really wanted to take it back to when hip hop was in its infant stages. And I felt like I was in my infant stages of a solo artist. So I was like, okay, let me go back to these roots as I'm going back to my own roots to really start to engage with my music in a different fashion, because prior to that I was in a group and I was making music with a group. So me even going into my solo career, I felt
yeah.
like, okay, I need to adjust my look for that. And I wanted to be a student of the game. So,
Mm,
that's really when I dove into the history of hip hop and I started researching, I started listening more to hip hop that was coming out before I was even born. And, going to the hip hop museum, going to New York, spend some time out there just to kind of get the vibe. And I was fortunate enough to tour pretty early in my solo career and see a few places. And I just kind of, it was like a birth of myself. Fast forward, as I started growing out my hair, I think it aligned a lot with um, just this black ownership,
mm.
embracing your blackness. It was kind of like around 2017 or so. And this has always been a thing, but I feel like more mainstream, like people were just like, you need to be unapologetically black. And, my roots are from Trinidad and Tobago. And, they have dreads there. They grow out their dreads, Caribbean. And I was like, you know what? I think it's time for me to start growing out my hair past my flat top.
Mm.
And I really wanted to connect with my Trinidadian roots during that time. So I was like, let me start this journey. And in growing out my hair, and I also wanted to get more connected to my blackness here in America.
Yeah.
I really realized, I was like, I'm not gonna like try and fit this mold anymore. I'm gonna just grow my hair out and be me, and you're going to have to accept this and take this as it is in a business world. Anywhere you go,
Mm.
if you're unfamiliar with this, then you're gonna have to ask questions. And with that comes a responsibility as well. You don't want to be, you don't want to do it for like just style alone. You don't want to do it
Right.
for trying to prove something either. You just want to do it, whatever kind of gets you a little bit more in tune with who you are. And I was just growing in that way of me surrounding myself with more people who look like me, as well as trying to assist and help in any of the issues that we were all facing. You know, I started to get a better sense of responsibility, and it was just, it was really cool. And this isn't, it's funny how God works. You know, he starts putting people around you
Yes.
that add to that. And I started getting into the spiritualism of things. I started getting into stones and the collection of different elements, and just kind of looking at that side. And I've always grown up with a sense of spiritualism. I grew up as a Christian, in a Christian household, and so I've had a good sense of God in my life.
Hmm.
But I'd say that I didn't really have a full relationship with God during that time. I had a relationship with the world and with certain ideas, and I was still unsure of what was the truth and what wasn't. So that was just really reflected in my hair going every which direction, every which
Mm.
way, you know,
Hmm.
getting tied up, getting knotted. And it was how I felt, and it was how I was expressing myself. So even through that, there was so much clarity that came from that, but there was also so much, there was more confusion, to be honest,
That's
you know,
real.
because I'm getting tied up in things of this world. I'm getting tied up in how people view hairstyles, and how you know, people respond to the way that I look and how I feel about myself, who I
Mm.
wanted to impress, who did I want to gain favor with, who did I not care about anymore. All of these things kind of started happening as I was growing out my hair, and my message was changing in my music. It was still positive, but it was trying to figure out what's the truth. You know, that's really the path that I went down, is like, all right, well, what's the truth? We're discovering all of these things on the internet. We're seeing all of these historic um, moments that are coming back to life
Yeah.
that we didn't learn in school, that we didn't know about. We're learning about Marcus Garvey and Frederick Douglass, and we're learning about Juneteenth, and we're learning about all these things that you can't, like, a lot of black people want to say, like, oh, you should have already known. Like, even black people are becoming hip to a lot of this now. You
Absolutely.
know, this is something that was deprived of us as Americans,
Yeah.
not as a black community. So I empathize a lot with people who don't even look like us, who don't know about these things, because I'm like, hey, I'm in the same boat. I didn't know about it either. But
Absolutely.
I felt a duty, in a sense, of saying, like, okay, I need to know about this. I need to be able to at least speak about this. Whether I advocate for it or not is, you know, subject to how I decide to be and what truths stick with me. But
Hmm.
I did feel like I can't be oblivious to this anymore. I can't no longer have an irresponsibility to who I am as an individual here in America, especially because I've been blessed to be surrounded by such a diverse group of people just in my life and through my
Yeah.
experiences. I was like, I need to be able to share this. I need to be able to be a resource. And all of those things were kind of coming into my mind as I was becoming my own self,
Yeah.
and as I was learning how to be vulnerable, and you know, learning, did I still have things in place that were preventing me from recognizing my full potential. And that was the journey. That was the 4-year journey. That was everything that was going on in my life at that time.
That's a lot. That is pretty detailed for a 4-year journey. That's I'm really happy for you. Like it's that type of journey, that type of self-reflection. And it's crazy because it all comes from hair. Like it's I'm sitting here and I'm resonating with you because it's like when you talked about like what are the truths about ourselves, you know, based off of the people around me, based off of what's expected from society, you know, based off of how people react to me. And that really hit home because that's
Mhm.
exactly how I felt, you know, like there is an expectation to be unapologetically black.
Mhm.
But what does that look like when you're not in tune with your blackness? Like you said,
Mhm.
like trying to connect with your blackness.
Mhm.
And it's really there's a lot of resolve in me being able to say that sentence alone, connecting to my Blackness without shame, without embarrassment,
Mm-hmm.
because now recently I feel that it is okay to have these conversations out loud, when
Mm-hmm.
before I was like, I don't know if I should be embarrassed about this, but I don't feel that connection with myself. I don't
Mm-hmm.
feel that connection with my Blackness. So like, can you describe that with you, like when you were
Yeah.
connecting with your Blackness? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it started early on, and I didn't really recognize it because, like I said, both of my parents are from Trinidad and Tobago, so
Mm,
the Black experience for them is a little bit different than what I've personally experienced
sure.
or what other Black Americans experience. So I never grew up with the same type of, um, I should say, emphasis on how Black people are treated in America. I
Mm,
would just operate how I operate. But one thing that I did notice is that my, my mom, she was in the education system, and one thing I noticed is that like people with accents get treated differently, whether you're
mm-hmm.
Black or not.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't have an
Microaggressions
accent.
are real, bro.
They're real. And I didn't have an accent. So no one could tell whether I was Trinidadian or Caribbean, or I was just Black. So because I didn't have that mindset already, a lot of things as I was growing up were confusing to me. Like
Mm-hmm.
I would be interested in uh in just a more diverse approach every time that I'd either make friends or have a girlfriend or just with my ideas. And I realized, which is interesting, is that like a lot of Black people wouldn't resonate with that. Why are you dating her? Like why are you hanging out with these people? Why aren't you? And I always
And by her and these people, it's outside of your race, outside of your
Yeah,
culture. Is that okay?
exactly. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes, just to clarify. And that was just regular to me. I was like, well, what are you
Right.
talking about? And it got to this point, and that was like early on. And then as I start getting into myself as an individual and what I'm here for, and I start learning about what's going on in our country and what has happened, I said, oh, okay, this is where they're coming from.
Right.
Do I now have a duty to be responsible for this, even though
Mm,
even though my experience in that is limited? It's not that I've never experienced, but it's limited. I've been blessed to operate and carry myself in a way that I haven't experienced some of the uh I would say the I don't want to go full on with like prejudices, but I haven't experienced some of the setbacks people who look like me have experienced.
I'm gonna call it what it is. I mean, I think, when you were using the word responsible, I think it is our responsibility, as hard as it may be, and as much as we don't want to use these trigger words, we can't fix a problem if we don't sit there and be truthful and identify what it is. There are
Agreed.
microaggressions within our community. There are prejudices within my community. As a light-skinned Black woman, mixed woman, I deal with it all the time.
Hmm.
So it's unfortunate, and maybe people are not privy that they're prejudiced to it. And I know
Yeah.
people are waking up to it. Even me realizing microaggressions that I'm dealing with my own family, like I'm even waking up to that stuff. So it's like,
Yeah.
you gotta just call a spade sometimes. It
It's
sucks,
true.
but
It's true. It's true. And I was in such a rose-colored glasses
mm,
type of individual that some of these things would be happening to me and I wouldn't even notice.
mhm,
I wouldn't attribute it to my skin
yeah,
until I really started getting to my Blackness. And I feel like that's interesting because that was the balance
yeah,
of, or me trying to find the balance at least, of saying, well, I'm getting more proud in my Blackness, but at the same time I'm recognizing more of what the world is treating me like. And that caused a conflict in
yeah.
me for being a positive soul and being someone that's like, hey, we're all in this together. Like this is an issue. If I acknowledge that, does that mean that I'm not being responsible for the things that have happened for us?
Mm,
Or if I don't acknowledge that, does that do I lack in Blackness now? Because of that. and
mm,
and these are the questions that I was having, and I didn't necessarily have people around me that I can have these conversations with. So a lot of this went unresolved, and I kind of buried it throughout my 20s and just like my growth process. And it wasn't until I started growing out my hair that I started asking myself those questions. So
Right.
that's why it's so dense within that 4 years, because it was like intense therapy for me. Who am
Yeah.
I? Who am I trying to impress? What do I care about? What
Yeah.
and what's important, and what's the truth? And I've always been a proponent of the truth. I think that the issue with America mostly revolves around honesty. Is that it's not that we haven't done bad things. We totally have. So many other countries have as well, but we've done horrible things.
Yeah.
But if we're honest about what we've done, then that now adds a responsibility and an accountability for us to move forward from that.
Mm-hmm.
So when you get someone like Jay-Z making a deal with the NFL and everybody's like, "Oh, look at how he did Kaepernick, da da da," like Jay-Z selling out, and Jay-Z responds with, "Yeah, we can kneel all day, but what's next?"
That
You
part,
know,
man.
and I'm like, I resonated with that because I was like, "You're right."
Yes.
It's not acknowledging what has happened. It's that there was an honesty that was put out. Like, yes,
Mm-hmm.
they blackballed Cap, they treated him wrong, it wasn't right. Now we can't, because they did that so nonchalantly, so like without really thinking about it, or if they did it purposefully, we need an individual to be there to
Yes.
keep the boat straight as we continue to move forward. And I've always felt myself to be fortunate enough to be in those spaces and to be able to communicate to others like, hey, this is wrong, but I also understand how you may feel about it if you didn't know that this was a wrong situation.
I
Like,
love
that's
that.
totally fine.
I love that because I'm a huge shout out Fresco. I just met him this year and he said something on one of my episodes that still hits me to this day. It's like, if you're going to believe in God, you have to research the devil.
Mm,
So it's like, I love the example about Jay-Z because we need someone to bridge that gap. We
yeah.
need someone who understands both sides of the spectrum. And someone like you and like I have a similar experience as you, is trying to connect with my blackness and understanding what that means. And because of that, like really unapologetically honing in on it,
Mm,
I've started to wake up and realize that stuff too. But what's interesting is that you're an advocate for both sides now. Like it's like you get what it's like outside of that very self-limiting thought process that can sometimes be unconsciously inflicted onto the black community, and
mm,
you're able to have these delicate conversations based off of experience of like, I get why you think the way that you think. Like
mhm,
my self-healing and my self-therapy has allowed me to connect with you in this realm.
mhm,
However, I'm also here to give you a safe space of providing an alternative perspective as to how we can go about this differently. Because one thing that I've noticed, I'm guilty of it too, my black brothers and sisters, we love to talk about a problem and not do anything about it. like
totally.
like we're
Totally.
great at that, and that's okay because I feel that's all that's been known. And I
Mhm,
feel like this year is, and I'm part of that too. I'm like, how can we further the conversation,
yes.
without being shamed or criticized or ridiculed for quote unquote dancing with the enemy or dancing
Mhm,
with the devil? And it's just like, man, every quote unquote villain has a story. America has
mhm,
a history.
mhm.
Like, we have to acknowledge it. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're a bad person. It just is
Yeah.
like, you didn't fucking know,
Yeah,
like,
exactly. I mean,
yeah.
there's good and bad on both sides. And that's the thing
Mm-hmm.
with the devil. A lot of people think that the devil plays one side. No, the devil plays both. That's why
Mm.
he's the devil. His point is to cause chaos. So as long as there's chaos, he's winning. And I realized, I was like, oh man, okay, so this is where justice comes in. This is where being the bigger person comes in. And a lot of um, our community, a lot of our black brothers and sisters don't feel that they are obligated to be the bigger person in
Mm.
situations because we've done it so many times. And I
Right.
totally understand how that
Yeah.
feels because
Yeah.
I've been there. I've been there where it's like,
It's
damn it,
exhausting.
like super exhausting. And it's like,
Yeah.
why do I always have to be aware? Why do, when I go out of my house, I'm conscious of these things, but a person who doesn't have my skin tone could just walk out, not think of this at all,
Right.
and be smooth. And it is a responsibility. It's a forced weight and added stress when we're struggling in America, just like everybody else is
Right.
struggling within America.
Right.
And I think that came to a maximum conclusion with the coupling of the pandemic and the George Floyd murder. You know, when those things
Yeah.
happened, it was okay, we are done with this one-off case.
Yeah.
This isn't a one-off thing anymore. Everyone is aware, and now that you're aware, knowledge is power, you have a responsibility, and with great power comes great responsibility. Shout out Stan Lee. Um, but
My
it's
guy.
so true. That's my guy. Rest in peace. Uh, but it is true though,
Yeah.
and people want to have the knowledge, but they don't want the responsibility.
That part.
And
Oof.
that is the issue
Oof.
with
Yeah.
where we're at right now. I've realized, I was like, okay, that's the truth that we're in, because it's
Yeah.
reflected in our social media, it's reflected in our politics. It's, people want the ability to be heard. They want the ability to be seen. They want the ability to lead. And they don't want any repercussions that come with that.
Yeah.
Like, there's a responsibility that is needed in order to lead. There's a responsibility that's needed in order to voice your opinion on something. And everyone thinks that, oh, well, I have a mouth, so I should
I
I
also
should be
feel that
considered.
there's like a little bit of fear too, because everyone is very sensitive right now,
Yeah.
particularly right now, which I get. I completely understand. People are just waking up to, whether they want to or not, the truths about everything about themselves. And it can be very overwhelming. So people are very sketch, and I get it.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
that being said, I feel like a lot of leaders, a lot of people, trying to facilitate these types of conversations, myself included. And when I was on the China show, I had like a self-reflective moment, like, fuck, I need to stop being so scared of being scared to ruffle feathers, or being scared to have conversations, because we're going to get canceled, or we're going to piss some people off, and like it's that's got to change. And I feel like that's not going to last too much longer. Like, it can't, like it's
Mhm.
like we're just going to be in this hamster wheel of just talking about the problem. We've been talking about the problem year
Mhm.
all year,
Yeah.
but what are we going to do about it? What
Exactly.
conversations need to be had? You know what I'm
Uh-huh.
saying? And
Yep.
it's scary. It's really scary. What do you think
Yeah.
about the quote unquote cancel culture?
I think that the cancel culture is, again, just it's a desperate attempt to basically force a responsibility on people who've had power.
Can you
Pe-
elaborate?
yeah, so on Twitter or on whatever social media that they want to be on, um, they feel that now that their voice is could be elevated to the same place as another individual who has some sort of power or some sort of celebrity,
Sure.
that they can now force a responsibility on what they can do or can't do based on who they are, or what they've already accomplished or what they've already done.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
because everyone has um, the ability to speak on it, they put themselves in that position without the responsibility. So they'll say, "Oh, well, I wouldn't have done this. So why'd you do it? You must be this type of person." And without the responsibility that's carried on why that person made that decision or what position they were in, you don't really know. You don't know
Mhm.
what led them to do what they did.
Mhm.
I'm not saying that what they did is right at all. I'm saying that the approach on what the conversation should be, and whether they, because there's just so much pressure that we get as humans. There's
Yeah.
so much when you're leading something and you are in charge of people's salaries and you are in charge of people's livelihoods. You have to make decisions that are difficult to
Right.
make for any human being.
Mhm.
We all bleed the same, we all breathe the same. And no one's super, in making these decisions, and they're subject to their own experience and their own learning. If they didn't do the research, There are people that are in positions in these companies and in these, celebrity positions that have never done the research. They're
Right.
put in there because of their relationships, or they're put in
Their
there because
influence.
or their influence, or they're in the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
And cool, more power to them. However, even that term alone, more power to them, means more responsibility to you as well. So what does that mean? I think
Hmm.
really it's, if you are in a position of influence or in a position of power, you have to be responsible now. So should those people get called out? Absolutely.
Hmm.
Do you have to take responsibility once you are? Absolutely. If
Hmm.
that means that your job is over because of that, then so be it. But you have to build that back up. And that's what's showing the responsibility. People who are like, oh, no, like, forget cancel culture, forget cancel culture. There's just a bunch of whining people. Like, who else is going to tell them? Who else is
I
going to
see.
bring this up?
Hmm.
However, when they do that, is the individual able to be responsible and get back to what they need to do? And in order to be responsible, you got to be honest. So you'll see
Yeah.
it. You'll see certain people that get canceled and they're radically honest, and then people back off. They're like, oh, okay. So even if they're a piece of shit, they're like, oh, okay, well, he's just a piece of shit, but at least like he was honest about
This
it.
is real with it. We can take
Exactly.
the
Like
consistency.
at
Yeah.
least we know, so now we can make a decision whether we want to support that or not. You
Sure.
know what I mean? It's not
Sure.
under a veil or a guise of this person being this amazing celebrity that does all of this work. It's like, oh, well, like, nah, you got some work to do.
Right.
You have to make sure that you are good for all people. And if you're not good for all people, then you shouldn't receive the support from all people. Like, they shouldn't be duped into supporting you if you aren't a great person. But if you're actually doing the work, you're actually being responsible, you're addressing where you're at as an individual and how you can affect change, and you're not trying to overextend past your purpose
Yeah.
or past where you're placed, then I think that they have a right to argue against people frivolously trying to cancel them, because they don't, at the same time, the cancel culture doesn't know what these people are doing. They don't
Right.
know. We have all these conspiracies and all these ways of thinking, and it's like, you've never even been in a room with this person, you've never met anybody that knows this person, you're not even in the circle. So how can you come to these conclusions? you
With
know uh,
certainty. Like it's the
yeah, with
confidence
so
behind
much
it that
certainty.
kills
and
me.
and that's the thing. I was just talking to my homie Victor about this, and like, he's like, I'm not upset that people have opinions. I'm upset that they're so certain that their opinion is a fact.
Yes.
And I was like, bro, like, that's
Ah.
totally real. Like, it's not about you having an opinion. You can totally have one. But if
Right.
you aren't humble enough to know that you could be wrong, and that if you are presented with information that contradicts or proves what your opinion was isn't true, you need to have enough courage and enough humility to change it. If you're just like, nah, this is my script, this is my movie, it needs to be like this. Oprah's evil in my movie,
Yep.
and I just want to make it that way.
Yep.
And or Jeff Bezos is evil in my movie, I just want to make it that way. It's like, until you do the research, until you put yourself in rooms, like, until you're at that place, like, if you're super super just like bent on figuring that out, you can. These are individuals, these are people. You can put in the work and do there. You can rise in the ranks of Amazon if you want. You
Hmm.
can go work over there, and maybe you'll get some time with Jeff Bezos, and then you can have that conversation. But I guarantee, while you're doing that whole process, you're going to get privy to information that's going to change the way that you think,
Mm.
and
Hmm.
that's a responsibility. So a lot of
Absolutely.
people, they want to keep the way that they think without the responsibility of figuring out whether it's truth or not.
That's real. That's some real ass shit. There's a lot of gems in what you said. So going back to what you said about the cancel culture, how I'm understanding your way of explaining it, it's a way of the followers and the community to hold that person accountable, which is appreciated, which is awesome. And I guess cancel culture, like we're canceling someone. I think the term is a little bit too aggressive, like, but I mean, it is what it is. But it's I was listening to I feel like there's two sides to that coin. Like just like with everything. I was listening to the interview with Sister Soldier on and Charlemagne the God, and he was talking to her about the cancel culture, and I love the way that she put it. She's like, there's the cancel culture, it provides a level of accountability. However, there is this thing where we're playing around with free speech at this point. Free
Yeah.
speech can go all the way up to being in a movie theater and shouting out fire, if
Hmm.
you wanted to. Up until that point, then we have to start asking questions. Is what I'm saying, what I'm doing, causing harm to
Hmm.
other people?
Yes.
So, it coincides with what you're saying
Hmm.
about being open with your philosophies and with your thoughts and not being so fucking rigid in
Yeah.
your belief system. There's
Exactly.
nothing wrong with having confidence behind what you believe,
Hmm.
having certainty with what you believe, but leave a little bit of room
Yeah.
to just be open,
Absolutely.
like, and that's what I'm hoping to do with this platform, is to really showcase and give an example of what that conversation looks like. It's like I'm
Hmm.
sitting across or virtually sitting in front of someone who has completely different outlooks, completely different experiences and how they perceive information. I've heard some wild shit, and I'm just like, I want to know why. I
Yeah.
want to know why you think the way that you think. And going back to saying, like, if you're going to believe in God, you have to research the devil. And I shout out to Dahlia, one of my bosses. She really ingrained into me. She's like, if you don't agree with something, it's not to say that there isn't anything wrong, but have the bravery to ask yourself why you don't believe in it.
Exactly.
Have the courage
Yeah.
to humble yourself enough to
Hmm.
be like, damn, this could potentially change my mind,
Yeah.
but let me just be open to it. Let me see if this is for me. And I love
Absolutely.
that she used the word bravery, because it
It's
is a
good.
very,
It's good.
it's tough.
Yeah. I mean, bravery, courage. These are things that our entire country wants to. I mean, those are the things that we champion. We champion
Mhm.
courage and bravery.
We
We're
do.
always
Yeah.
talking about Americans being courageous and being brave. And we always talk about freedom. And a lot of these words, they're derived from other words. A lot of people are confusing freedom with being free. And those are two different things. We have freedom here. And if you take free and then you take dom, what is dom short for? Dominion. We have free dominion. Well, if you take dominion, how can you have dominion over something? Well, that means that there's a place that it stops.
Mm.
There's a jurisdiction, there's a principle, there's something
Mhm.
that lines it up. Like even in one of the best animated movies ever, Lion King,
Mm.
Mufasa said, "These Pride Lands you have complete dominion over, except for that shadow area over there.
Right.
Even I don't go over there."
Everything the light touches is
Yes,
yours.
is
Yes.
yours. Let's go, James Earl Jones. Let's go.
Man, got to quote it
And
right.
and it's true, because a
Yeah.
lot of people think that freedom means you could do anything you want. No, you can do anything you want within the confines, within the principles
Mhm.
of these certain things. So when it comes to free speech, it should be freedom speech because you can't say anything,
Right.
because then once it starts impeding on other people's rights, or it starts making people feel unsafe, then we have a problem. And I think that that's where our cancel culture is living at, where they're like, oh, you just have somebody getting fired from Disney for saying, or implying racist things, or implying discrimination. And people are like, oh no, it should be free speech, it should be free speech. And it's like, I'm sorry, but we were led wrong. Like, it's not free speech. You can't just
Right.
say whatever you want, especially if you're under contract for something that,
I was gonna
a
say Colin
company.
Kaepernick is the most prevalent in your face example of
Yes,
what that means.
absolutely.
Because like I said, like Sister Soldier said, free speech goes all the way up to shouting fire in a movie
Uh-huh.
theater.
Yep.
He kneeled. All he did was kneel. He practiced his free speech, right?
Mhm.
And they hung him. They
Yeah.
literally, figuratively hung that man. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
crazy.
And because he was under contract with the NFL. And whether you think that that's a good thing or not, what that does is that opens up the question and the accountability for the place that you are working for or under contract for. You know,
Mm-hmm.
if you want to be truly free, then you can't work for anybody but yourself. The minute that you are representing something or a brand or any sort of entity that is providing for others and you're benefiting from that, there's a responsibility that comes with that because there's
Absolutely.
power in it and there's influence. And that's really what it comes down to. Like I think we already addressed it at the beginning of this pod. With great power comes great responsibility. So
Mm.
if you are of influence and you are in a position, this goes for musicians, this goes for artists, this goes for CEOs, this goes for anybody who has an expertise. If you are an expert or have an expertise in something, there's a responsibility that comes with that you
Right.
need to know of and you need to be willing to share.
Right.
And a lot of people in today's society want all the knowledge, they want all the power with no accountability
And
and
no
no
work. They don't want
responsibility
to
and
do
no
the
work.
work.
No
Who, this
work.
generation kills me.
No
Like,
work.
they'll be so quick to go on Clubhouse, use every big word that they looked up in the thesaurus, and I'll be like, cool, what's your experience? Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm
No,
going off on a
I
tangent, but like,
no,
it's
you're good. I got
like,
off of Clubhouse. I got off like I started out, it was great, and I
yeah,
was like, "Oh man, this is really really cool." Really, and it just the more people that I saw starting to get in and get on, and then they started like recording the audio, I was like, "Oh, this is going down fast."
I'm
And
sorry. Like, I
so,
remember I was talking to Eugene about it, and like, it's just kind of like my I told you so moment, because I'm like, I knew Clubhouse was going to eventually become oversaturated because
mhm,
the way that people were handling the protocol in getting an invitation and stuff like that. And
mhm,
I was like, let's unpack this. Let's really talk about this, because like social media is an oversaturated realm anyway. Like, it's
mhm,
so easy to get lost in the sauce. And Clubhouse was kind of like that outlet that made it a little bit more difficult to get in, but with exclusivity comes much higher quality.
mhm.
And it was supposed to be a safe space for people who had already been doing the work
Yep,
to find a communal ground and connect.
yep,
And of course, every Susie, Dick, and Harry was like slanging these invitations. And I was like, bro, like, there's a reason why. Like, if you look at it, it was only released for iPhone for a
mhm,
while. It had to be invitation only. And it was based off of your networking skills, it was
yeah,
based off of people that you knew.
mhm,
And because people were selling it, I was like, it's going to kill it.
yeah,
You're going to get anyone in there, and then it's just going to become another Twitter, it's going to
mhm,
become another Facebook, and that's
yep,
exactly what happened.
yeah.
So it's
And
like,
everyone was and it's crazy because people can't separate their friends. So they're like,
ooh,
"Oh, my
that's
homie."
real,
They're like, "Oh,
that's
my
real.
homie needs to be on it too." Your homie hasn't done nothing, and you know that. So why are you putting them on there? You know, like I was like I still have invites.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was like I'm not going to just like I know people can sell them. I wasn't going to slang these out to
Right.
anybody. I specifically picked people because the person that invited me specifically picked me.
Right.
So I was like, okay, I'm appreciative and super grateful that you have seen the work that I've done and thought that it was worth me being involved in these conversations. That's
Yep.
wonderful. And
Yep.
that's a responsibility. I
Boom.
was like, okay, I'm going to be responsible now. And I'm not going to give it to my homie who I kick it with all day talking about, you know, whoop de whoop, whatever. We
All we
can keep
doing is
that
smoking weed,
relationship.
talking about movies. Clubhouse is not for him. It's
Exactly.
not a bad thing. It's just like, I
No,
don't see how he would benefit from this app right now.
exactly. Exactly. All you're going to do is go in, you're going to be a consumer
Mm-hmm.
in that space, and then you're going to slang it out to whoever. I don't know who you're going to bring in after I give it to
Exactly.
you.
Exactly.
And that's the that's the rub of it. So it's just kind of like, all right, um,
I just
that's
felt
what
like it was a
Clubhouse
missed
is.
opportunity, because it's like, it created, I thought it was brilliant. I thought it was brilliant how it created the FOMO thing. It created this motivation and this like, oh my God, like, what do I got to do to get in it? And instead of people guiding the conversation and being like, and explaining to them, this is an app that will help you network. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not impossible for you to get an invitation, but
Mhm.
if you put yourself out there in you know, in a professional manner, or you make connections with certain people, you will get an invitation, you
Yeah.
know? So it just, I feel like it was a really, really good idea. The intention behind it was brilliant, but I was just like, damn, it was just a little bit of a missed opportunity right there.
Yeah, I mean, and that's why secret societies stay secret.
Hey, like
You know,
that's fucking real. Like that's really real.
that's how it is. That's where the whole. It's funny that it's called Clubhouse, because that is where the elite type of mindset derives from. They have clubs that people can't go into, and they don't want to make them prominent because it's over at that point. And I thought
Yeah.
it was really, really cool. Um, Around like September, October, I joined in December, and then I started seeing the. I knew it was all bad when the conversation started being screen recorded and posted on Twitter. When I saw that, I said, "Oh, okay, it's over. Like
Yeah.
it's absolutely over."
Yeah.
And it's just so crazy. It's like, why can't you just commit to something? That wouldn't
Interesting.
that wouldn't be necessary if you as an individual explore yourself enough to commit to something, then you can become an expertise in whatever you commit to, because you put in the time, you put in the effort, you put in the work. And when you do that, doesn't matter what it's for, you will be invited in spaces where you can speak on that, whether it's Clubhouse,
Mhm.
whether it's a seminar, whether it's at a school or anything like that. And I say all this to say that as an artist at the beginning of this pandemic, I realized, okay, I need to do more. If I want to be recognized and make an impact in the way that I want to make an impact, I have to be more responsible.
Mhm.
I have to be committed to how I feel about something and convicted in how I feel about something regardless of where it pushes me.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's where I saw myself. That's when I knew I was at the end of my hair journey, because I
Yeah.
was like, "Oh, okay, I'm going to make decisions now of I'm no longer going to be wishy-washy or get pulled and pushed by the waves of the world. I'm going to anchor to something and say, this is what I believe in, this is what I'm going to study, and this is how I'm going to move forward." And the minute that I did that, everything changed. Everything changed
You
for me.
anchored in your truth. It sounds like you could, and you took a break off of social media for a while too,
I
huh?
did. I did.
Yeah.
That was part of it. Shouts out to Aries K, my girlfriend.
I was
She
gonna say I want to touch on.
encouraged.
Oops, my that was really dramatic. I wanted to say because you guys are. That's another thing I want to touch on. Like the movement that she's leading and your help facilitating is like, it's incredible. But yeah, speaking on your absence from social media.
Yeah, we took some time during this pandemic to recommit to one another, and specifically me too, because I was in this place of exploration, trying to figure out who I was and who I am and all. And I have this wonderful woman who was loving me and saw all of this potential in me from the jump. And I was like, okay, I need to make a decision,
Hmm.
on who I'm going to be and what I'm going to stand for. So luckily I had that time because of the pandemic. I'm not saying that I didn't have the time or didn't make the time before, but by the grace of God, this pandemic hit
This
and everything
pandemic
slowed
gave
down.
a lot of people a lot of time they did
Yeah,
not have. So that's a real ass statement.
I
Yeah.
got to reflect. I got to reflect.
Hmm.
And I was like, okay, how do I capture everything that I have cemented in my life that I believe in? And how do I get rid of all of the things that were convenient for me to believe in at the time that I was in it?
Convenient. I love that. That was convenient
It
for
was
you to believe
convenient.
in.
And I'll be honest. I'll be super honest. There were things that I said, "Oh yeah, I'm down for," that I wasn't really down for.
Right.
But it was convenient for me to move in a space that allowed me to prosper in a time where I didn't know who I was.
Hmm.
So I was trying to figure it out and I didn't want to miss out. So I was just kind of like, yeah, I'm rolling with this. But then in my relationship, we're having these conversations, I'm being challenged now where it's like, oh snap, I really don't even have like a why on why I did that,
It's real.
or I haven't thought about that why, and now I'm diving deeper into it. So just shouts out to her for being a real one.
For asking
But
those deep, important, self-reflecting questions, like
super
having
deep.
a mirror like that is
Yes.
able to lovingly that could potentially be trigger questions, but lovingly put you in a position where you're looking at yourself, at your
Mhm.
shadow self,
Mhm.
is an incredible feat. So yeah,
Yes.
Ari's K, shout out to her.
Yes. She's wonderful, and she did this work for herself prior to us engaging.
Mm,
So when I was ready to be vulnerable and to do it, she knew how to approach that.
that's
And
great.
as we were talking things out, we were just shedding layers and getting rid of things. And I realized, I was like, I was growing out my hair to connect with my blackness when I'm black. Like,
Mm,
this isn't something, I don't need to do anything that is quote unquote black to be black.
mm-hmm,
My experience is validated just in my existence. And once I realized that, I was like, okay, I need to shed it's not that I don't like locks or anything like that, because I'm growing back out my hair, but I
mm-hmm,
needed to shed the reason why I grew it out in the first place. And
mm-hmm,
I recognized that there was energy that was in there. I used to smoke weed. I don't smoke weed anymore. There was smoke in there, from all the
mm-hmm,
times that me and the homies were blazing or whatever. Like, it locks
mm-hmm,
in. These elements, they don't fade. They don't disappear. Energy doesn't disappear, it just gets moved around. So
mm-hmm.
I recognized I had a lot of that in there. I've had people touch my head who shouldn't have been around me at all, and I'm just like, no, I'm not going to carry the energy of all of these individuals without me being solid in who I am as an individual. And so I said I needed a cleanse. I needed a cleanse. We started doing meditations. Meditations led me to shout out Deepak Chopra. We did a 21-day meditation, and those meditations led me to getting back in touch with my relationship with God.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized and shout out to my mom, because she's just such a praying prayer warrior woman that
Shout
has,
out to all the prayer warriors. My mom is
oh
one too, man. I'm
my
always like, Mom,
goodness.
can you call the team? I need a prayer.
Yes.
Like, yes. Shout
Yes.
out
I
to all
need
the
I
prayer
need an
warriors.
intercession right now.
Yes. Yes.
And she comes through so much. Like, so much of where I am is because of her prayers. And I just recognize that, and I'm appreciative. And
Mm,
I just realized, I was like, I was never meant to look at the world like this. I didn't grow up like this. I didn't like, there's something special about the way that I saw it, and it wasn't flawed. It wasn't me being um naive to what the
yeah.
world was. It was me trying to bring a love that was unprecedented at that time. But
Mm,
I allowed the culture to dilute and to discourage and to divert and divide. Like, see, all these dies are in there. They're in these words for a reason, and it's for separation. And I realized, okay, no, I'm not going to allow myself to get there. I'm going to reconnect with my God. I'm going to reconnect with my relationship and what that means to me. I'm going to reconnect with who I am as an individual, and I'm going to own it. And whoever doesn't like it, doesn't like it. And it's funny, because when I got to that, I got to the unapologetically black that I was looking
that,
for
you know what I'm
the
saying?
time,
It's fucking crazy
the
because
whole time.
it's not about being unapologetically black. It's about being unapologetically yourself,
Self.
and
There it is.
whatever that means. It's
Huh?
like, I'm black. It's in my genes. Like,
Yes.
whatever that means. And it's brilliant what you're saying. It resonates so much. And I know there's a lot of other people, mixed people, black people who are not connected with their blackness, that need to hear this, because it's like, it's not about dreads. It's not
Mhm.
about wearing your natural hair. It's not about it's a little bit about the melanin, but it's about like,
It has
it's
its
about,
benefits.
yeah, it has its benefits. But it's about that connection with self and what that
Yes.
means.
Absolutely.
And if it
Absolutely.
works and serves you, like, that's beautiful, Noreik. That's amazing.
I'm just so grateful. I'm so grateful, and because I became more intentional with my relationships, my relationship with Aries, my relationship with my parents and my family, my relationship
Yes.
with God, um, the blessings just started pouring out. And I started recognizing, oh, okay, this is how I'm supposed to be moving. So I didn't, and part of that responsibility, I realized, I said, okay, I have a lot to learn. I'm not totally there yet,
Mm-hmm.
but I've already done things that have brought me to a place of influence.
Right.
So
Right.
there was a fear that was there where it was like, am I steering people wrong? I don't want to do that anymore. So let me take a break from continuing this influence and really make sure that where I'm directing it is in the right place. And that's what led
That's
to,
mighty responsible of you.
thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. I thought so too. It's not easy. It's not easy,
It's
but
scary.
it's very scary. And and that changed in my regular day job, in my work. It changed in my music. It changed in my social approach. So, and it changed in my look. I was like, okay, went to go see um, my barber. Shout out Cam. Um, and he was like, "Yo, you gonna cut it all off?" I said, "Yeah, man, it's time." He said, "All right, for sure." Laced me up with a fire cut, and I just felt the release. I felt the release, and I was like, "Okay, I'm clearing out my socials. I'm gonna archive everything. I'm thankful for everything that has happened, but where I'm going now, those things aren't all of those things aren't going to add to where I'm going now. So
Mm-hmm.
let me sort through what I need to sort through, and then let me move forward from there. Even the music that I've made, because I made so much during the pandemic, it hasn't seen the light of day yet, because in in me making my music, you can hear the struggle of it. You can hear the uncertainty of it. And I was like, music is so powerful. I got
Yes.
into it for the reason of saying, like, I need to speak life into people. I need to be able to help people with this music. Um, and I have to be responsible. So a lot of the music isn't going to see the light of day because it was coming from a place of confusion, and it was coming from a place of uncertainty. And if some of that benefits someone who's in that place, then I may put it out, but I'm waiting for direction for that now. I'm no
I
longer
liked
going to just make it on my own.
I want to highlight that because I think there is that's really important that you're making music that you aren't necessarily focused on putting out, because as creators, especially in this digital age, especially through this pandemic, there is a much higher pressure to
Hmm.
constantly be putting out content. And
Hmm.
sometimes we forget, myself included, that we're creating because we are creators, because we are creative beings. That is an outlet because it's for our mental health, it's for our spiritual health,
Hmm.
and we don't necessarily have to perform all the time. Not
Yes.
everything that we create is for everyone's consumption. Sometimes we
Yeah.
just need to get the shit out. Like
Yeah.
sometimes we just
Yep.
need to get stuff out. It's like, wow, that was terrible, but at least it's out of me. Like,
Yep. Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. And I started recognizing that because prior to that, everything that I made, I put out, and as an
Yeah.
artist, just to all the artists that are listening to this, you need to understand that if you are truly an artist and truly a creator, you have to make these things. But once you make them, it is your decision on whether you want to put it out or not. Not everybody needs it. So you have to humble yourself and recognize that you aren't the savior of everybody.
Mm.
There's only one savior. And you don't need to put this out for someone else's like help. If you are put into a position where you're like, yo, I made this song that can probably help you, send it to that person individually.
Mm.
You don't have to put it all out for this mass consumption and feel, and because some people are going to like it, some people aren't. It may resonate, it may not. But most importantly, it's your responsibility. Now it's out there. Now it's in the world, and it's going
Right.
to affect. You no longer have control over how it affects. So I realized, okay, I'm going to be a lot more intentional with my music. You know, as far as what I'm going to put out. And at this point in time, I'm so busy that me putting out the act of putting out music isn't on my number one priority. I'm still
Mm-hmm.
making music, I'm still doing features, I'm still writing and everything like that. But what I want to stand behind, I still need some learning. I still need some knowledge that I have to acquire before I put that out. And when I put that out, because of where my plate is now and because of how I'm moving, the audience and the network that I want to reach is going to just open itself up to me. And I have a very, very strong feeling that the recognition of that is going to come in a way that all my years of trying and trying and trying, it's going to just, those years are going to pale in comparison to the actual effect and the real impact that it's going to have. And I could wait on that.
Well, if I wasn't, if I wasn't mistaken, that sounds like you fell in love and have learned to trust the process. Like you fell in love with the process. And
Hmm.
that is something that I've heard for years. I've seen on cat posters, I've seen in classroom posters and
Yeah.
sayings and memes. And it's like, I don't know what the fuck that means. Like, I just want to get to the end goal. Like, getting to the end goal is my definition of success. And like, you know, it's everything that you're saying is just so incredibly profound because like the process is the success, like learning to
Hmm.
love that process,
Bingo.
discovering every evolution of yourself, discovering every obstacle that you've overcome. That's the definition of success that i've
Yep.
i've learned to define that as at least my definition of success, because it's like I'm always going to have an opportunity to create. I'm always going to have an opportunity to put something out or, but like, what does that mean to me?
Hmm.
Like, am I asking myself these self-reflective questions of like, is this important or am I just throwing shit at the wall to see what sticks?
Exactly.
Like it's like,
Exactly.
what is my intention behind it? And like,
Yeah.
once I discovered that, where I was like, nope, this is what it is. This is who I am. I did the work. I did all the ugly crying. I did all like the shameful releases and stuff like that.
Hmm.
And I know one thing for sure is that I am anchored in this. Like there's
Hmm.
nothing like I remember kind of yelling at my mom when she was questioning me about culture fuzz. And she's
Hmm.
like, and I didn't mean to yell. It was more like a passion. And I kind of
Yeah.
surprised myself because
Yeah.
she was like, well, maybe, God doesn't always put things in our path that need to be accomplished. And I was like, I know where this conversation is going, and I'm going to
Hmm.
tell you
Hmm.
right now. Like,
Hmm.
and I felt like it wasn't even me talking. Like, it was like, if there's one thing that I know, and I don't know how it's going to happen, is that this is what I'm supposed to do. Like,
Hmm.
I've with every fiber of my being. And like, that surprised me and shocked me because it's like, wow,
Yeah.
I fully shifted into this person that fully believes in myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like my mom is my biggest trigger. Like I love my mother, but she's also my biggest trigger. And she had the capability of planting doubt in
Mm.
myself. And this time
Mm.
I was like, nope, not
Yeah.
allowed. Didn't pass the
Yeah.
vibe check. No.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be careful of that because your family are humans as well, and everybody has an experience. Everybody had something where they had to make a decision on, and sometimes they pass on that experience
Yeah.
to their loved ones, and they're like, I just don't like their fear of them not accomplishing something or their wisdom of knowing that people around them haven't before supersedes what God has been telling the people that are around in their life and what he's
Man.
been telling you. So it's okay. One thing that I've recently learned, which is super interesting to me and something that I had to humble myself to understand, is I've been talking about passion and passion and passion. And everything is about passion and passion being the greatest thing of all. But if passion is over God's promise for you as an individual, then you're wrong because passion could lead to you making decisions for yourself that affect you in a way that isn't positive. And what I mean by God's promise is the anointing that you experience in knowing that you're aligned with what you're doing. Your purpose is what you're doing right now. It's not something that you're going to go after
So
and
it's
attain.
kind of like that physical, because I know when I'm aligned, I get this physical, like how I describe it, that this physical reaction, this like
Mm-hmm.
solace, like heart
Mm-hmm.
chakras swelling, body is vibrating, of
Mm-hmm.
almost feeling out of body, of like, this is what I'm supposed to do. This is the
Yeah.
download. This is that thing that you're talking about, that connection, that purpose that God has implanted in you. Like,
Mm-hmm.
when you're aligned, like things just fall beautifully into place,
Yeah, and you have a
inexplicably.
peace. You
Yeah.
have a peace that's there. They say that God is a wonderful
Yes.
counselor, is the Prince of Peace. Like there's a peace that is
Yes.
there that you're just like, oh, okay, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And God is also not limited by time.
Mm.
So the thing that you're trying to do,
He has a sense
you,
of humor with that.
oh yeah, it'll jump leaps and bounds in time. In 1 week, your life will change,
Man,
and you spent months and years trying to get to that point. At the same time, God favors preparation.
like,
If he
gonna
knows that
say,
you're
yep,
preparing,
yep.
he's gonna take it over the top. And I had a saying when I was young and didn't wasn't knowledgeable, but for some reason the Holy Spirit just gave it to me, is it doesn't happen overnight, but when it does, it's overnight. It's just, you will put in the work, you'll get prepared, you'll prepare your nets, and then God will say, all right, go fish.
Literally,
And
Thanos snap.
then you'll just, yeah, and you'll go, and all of a sudden it's game time.
Yep,
And you'll know because you prepared for it.
yep.
And that's the where I'm in right now, is I understand that he needed to change my character to put
Mm.
me in rooms where he wanted me in, and I didn't even know were rooms. I didn't even know that they were available,
Absolutely.
and in my work. And he said, be a steward, do the things that I've told you to do. And when I say told you to do, this isn't just something that, oh, I woke up one day and I got. No, I was very intentional with waking up every day and getting in God's presence. A lot of people don't really understand what that means. And it's
Hmm.
not necessarily like, oh, it's a Christian thing, it's a Catholic thing, it's a Muslim thing, or whatever. No, you need to get into your creator's presence. There is a moment of understanding of saying, look, I need help in operating throughout
Hmm.
this world.
Hmm.
There is something inside me that needs to come out.
Hmm.
How do I express that? What do I
Right,
need to do? God,
right.
tell me the things that need to be blocked out and the things I need to focus on. And then all of a sudden you'll start to hear a still voice that will just speak to you and tell
Right.
you, like, this is what you have to do. And you still have a choice. You can ignore that voice. You can step over it. You can do something else. But a lot of times we hear it. And I guarantee you can ask so many human beings to be like, man, something told me to do that. Well, that's
I had a
something.
gut feeling.
I
Hmm.
had a gut feel. Exactly. Those are the ways that God communicates. And
I
be,
always say random thoughts are not random.
no, not at all. Not at all. They're not random at all. They're implanted in you. And I have like a belief separate of that, of like a community thought. I feel like that a lot of people have the same thought at the same time, and that's how
Interesting.
God tests your preparation. Because everyone will get this thought, but who's prepared to bring it to life?
Ah,
Who's prepared to go the extra mile to make it happen? Because God wants to see whatever it is. I don't know why this is the case, but within our universe, within our the way that our reality is, miracles are worked through human beings.
yeah.
Whether you are a doctor, whether you are a lawyer,
We're the
whatever
vessels.
profession, we're the vessels that
Yeah,
miracles go through. So
yeah.
God is like, I want to bring a miracle into this earth. Who am I going to use to do it?
Hmm.
And if you aren't prepared, he's going to use somebody else to do it, because there's an ultimate design and there's an ultimate will that needs to happen.
Hmm.
And I always, and that's why some people recognize, like, yo, like, I've had these experiences, like I've done this good here, but like I just can't seem to get it. And it's like, you have an anointing over you. You have to now be prepared for that. You have to now be intentional for that. You have to now have faith in doing that. And it may not always look like what you think it looks like, you
Exactly.
know? And
Exactly.
it's recognizing, okay, I like to speak. I like to speak life into people. I like to be put into positions where I can help. Well, you need to be humble and open enough to know that that could be as a teacher, that could be as an artist, that could be as a counselor, that could be as so many other things that you aren't even thinking of. And are you going to be positioned? Are you going to allow yourself to get positioned in preparation to execute that, and have faith that the rest of the things that are surrounding you will be taken care of? And once I
Yeah.
realized, like, oh, okay, I need to do that, I moved out of my house, got an amazing place that I'm stewarding over. My relationships got better. My friendships got better. I'm, looking into getting into the nonprofit sector right now because I want to give back and I want to do it legitimately.
Mhm.
I'm looking into how am I going to create this music and how's it going to be? Am I just going to fall for what's in or what's new, or am I going to just bring my own sound that is unique to me? And all of those questions and all of those answers are going to come to me because I'm putting in the work
And you're
every day
asking the important
and I'm
questions
asking the
too.
questions. Exactly.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, that's ultimately what it is. It's like whether you believe in God, whether you want to make it religious or not, there is there's a connection and a higher source that we have a responsibility to connect to. It's
Yes.
whatever you want to call it. I know
Agreed.
people listening to this know what it is that I'm talking about. However you want to define it. Some people
Yep.
say it's the universe, some say it's the source, some call it God, but you go inward. When you're talking
Mhm.
about when you step in front of God every morning, it's like I step in front of the universe every morning. I sit quiet, I go within myself, I set my intentions for the day, I ground myself, and sometimes I get a download, sometimes
Mhm.
I don't get anything,
Mhm.
but it's a my responsibility to continue doing that work
Yes.
and to humble myself and to kill my ego and praying every single day, meditating every single day of like, I know culture fuzz is what I'm supposed to do. I don't understand it. I
Mhm.
don't get it, but I know how I feel when
Mhm.
I'm cultivating it, when I'm
Yes.
doing what I'm supposed to do. Cause like I was telling my mom, I'm like, I can't explain it to you, but I almost physically feel ill when I'm not doing this. Like I find
Mhm.
myself going into a depression and it's strange. It's so weird, but I know that that's my cue of like, if I veer off of that path, I'm
Mhm.
veering away from my purpose.
Yeah.
And that's because I'm being intentional with my awareness. I'm
Mhm.
paying attention to my mind body relationship. I
Mhm.
don't care what anybody says, it's scientifically proven your body physically reacts to these energies.
Yes.
And that's why it's the gut feeling, your heart chakra, like your PTSD lives in your body. If you find yourself locking up when you're around someone,
Mhm.
it's your responsibility to be like, why is this
Yeah,
happening?
you have
Why
to
am I
unpack
reacting?
that.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And it takes a lot of humbling. It takes a lot of killing of the ego.
A lot of
It's not
honesty.
cute. Oh my gosh, it's not fun. It's not
Mhm.
fun, but it's insanely liberating when you reach the other side of that
Yes.
and finding yourself being in these positions of pressure or, damn, like a year ago, I would have like blown up at that or I would have cried at that. But
Mhm.
now I'm sitting here, I'm listening, but I'm not subscribing to it. I'm
Mhm.
just
Mhm.
observing. I'm being an
Mhm.
observer of my thoughts and I'm just kind of letting it ride through. And if it's for me, I'll chew on it for a second and see if I want to adopt that. And if it's not, just be
Mhm.
like, okay, cool. And like let
Mhm.
it pass. And it is the most peaceful place to be.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's
And
incredible.
and the only way you can do that is if you start to find pieces of you that are truth. You
I
hold
love
on
that.
to your convictions of who you are as an individual.
So speaking on triangles, like how did that meaning from when you first named the album, how has that meaning changed for you?
Well, I think I chose an angle.
Ooh.
The whole thing was trying different angles and figuring out what, getting the experience that you need to get back to where you are as an individual. And
Mm.
out of the three songs, you had outbound calls. And I feel like I started to manifest that. I started placing calls. I started speaking to people outside of my network. And then I had down for me. And I started checking who are the people who are really for me, and who are the people that I want to invest in, and how do I start to cultivate people who are down for me. And lastly, I started looking inward and recognizing who I was. I dug deep, looking for it. And even in the lyrics, it's crazy how prophetic it ends up being. Is like, I realized it starts with me. And I had to make that decision and say, okay, well, if it starts with me, then I need to know who I am.
Right.
And that was the
Wow.
angle that I chose.
Wow.
And the vulnerability that I was able to experience within those three songs led me to learning how to be vulnerable as an individual altogether. And being vulnerable with a significant other letting her know your deepest fears and being met with love in return and and understanding, you know, like a lot of people, even words, I know we're talking about how words are separated, like understanding, you know, like you have to know what people are standing on.
Yep.
You know, you need to have understanding of what they're, or else you can't stand them. You know, if you remove
Absolutely.
under, then you just can't stand them and you don't know why.
It's
But it's
like
because you don't have
every
an
villain
understanding.
has a story. Every shadow
Absolutely.
side of yourself, like every person that you would have quote unquote, identify as bad, like even murderers, killers, like I've learned to take on, I guess that comes from like the journalistic approach, but I've always had this curiosity of like I don't, for the most part, I don't believe people are born bad. I feel that it's usually part of upbringing and psychological beliefs, and I'm always curious to know how they got there. And I really appreciate movies like, I keep forgetting it. The one with Thanos, Infinity War. I
Yeah.
appreciate movies like Infinity War and the latest movies of the Joker because it gives us a look behind the villain and
Yeah.
it gives us a chance to empathize with their story. Doesn't necessarily mean I'm saying like, oh, they're actually really good. It's like, no,
No.
you still have
No.
a responsibility that you
Absolutely.
have to uphold.
Yeah.
But I appreciate how we're able to get a glimpse into why they became the way that they became.
Yeah, I mean, because the things that we do that are wrong are measured in the same. You know, they come from a certain place, and just because we're trying to humanize somebody doesn't mean that what they've done is excusable.
Right.
It's not excusable at all, and there will be consequences that correlate with what they are doing. Or at least
Right.
there should be every time,
Yeah.
and that's what justice is. But in order for us to carry on the compassion and the love that we need to carry on,
Yes.
we have to do that, you know, and like regardless of what you believe in, even with Jesus, there are so many examples in the story of Christ, of him bringing himself to a level of people who've done him wrong to show that compassion and that empathy. And
Mm.
it never justifies what they do. It's always, you know, don't do this anymore now that you recognize that this has been the case. Or it's always, these are the consequences. This is going to get brought down. You're going to lose out on this. And that's just the way that our universe works.
Hmm.
You know, our universe, that's why those stories are so compelling, because our universe operates with consequence. With a give and a
Karma's
take.
real, man.
You know what I
I
mean?
always
Like
say like
it's all of that.
karma will always be more creative than I could ever be. Like that's why I'm not vengeful. I'm not
Mhm.
as petty as I used to be. Like I'd let things lie because I'm like, you know what? Your karmequity, your everything that
Well,
you've
I
put
like
in,
that.
everything that you've put into all the energy, the intention that you've put into the world
Mhm.
so far, it's
Mhm.
all building up,
Yeah.
and it's going to come back exactly how you gave it out. So that's why,
Yeah.
like, it's not my job. It's not my job to be vengeful. That's not for me.
And one of the key things is that a lot of people get it confused. They think that it's just going to come back to them. No, it
Hmm.
can come back to your family. It can come back
Mm.
to your generations. It could come back to your legacy. Your great great grandkids could receive the karma that you put into this world today that you didn't mean
Wait,
to
I
do,
got
and it
some
could
praying
affect
to do
them.
to the ancestors, cause
I'm just
like
saying. I'm saying.
we
You
gotta
know,
talk.
yeah, and that's why it's so key for our family and ancestors to pray over the generations, you know, because and a lot of Native Americans believed in this as well, as far as everything that you do, they did knowing that it's going to affect the seven generations after them.
Wow,
So
I didn't know that.
having that belief and that thought keeps you accountable and responsible for the power that you have today. A lot of people, when it comes to politics, it's an issue because all of the decisions are being made as if it's going to come into effect right now and affect
Mm.
us,
Hmm.
when really the decisions that need to be made are for the next four generations, so
Right.
that is a change that ends up happening. But a lot of people, they're like, oh, well, I spent my whole life in politics and now I'm 80 years old and I need to make sure that this happens now. And it was never for you. The
Right.
people who came before you allowed you to stay 80 years in politics. That was the benefit. You know
Right.
what I mean? So we have to check what we're putting into this world and the
Yeah.
energy that we're given, because a lot of people, they're okay with putting bad energy in the world because they think that they can handle bad energy coming back to them. But
Mm.
guess what? It may not come back to you. You may think it's sweet and have yourself, a family, and you have a child, and then that child ends up having a child with something that's wrong, or losing a loved one, or something happening. And this is not anything that we are asking for. This isn't anything that you can't even overcome.
Mm-hmm.
But why are we allowing the chaos to continue
That's all we
as it
know.
as it wants to?
Yeah.
Like, let's put a stop to it right now. And though we may be paying for things that our ancestors have done,
Right.
let's put a stop to it. It doesn't mean that our future generations deserve to receive those things. And like how you're saying, nobody's born evil. So if that's the case, let's stop cursing our generations, break those cycles.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Let's stop it right here. And I've just made a commitment to that. I made a commitment to stopping. Like, now, yeah, I have some skin in the game. There are things that I've done from before that I was just unaware of that will affect me, in coming back. But in my belief system, I believe in being absolved of those things and
Mm-hmm.
turning away. It's just called repenting. And when you do that with a heart posture that is, of submission and of humility, then you are made new. And I wanted to be made new, so I went through that process and I became a new person to myself. And people have noticed. People know that I operate differently now. I'm having different conversations with people who've known me from before, and
Mm-hmm.
they've said, okay, you're thinking differently now. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I am different now. I've killed the old me, and now I'm living for something different. And whether this life that I'm living now is the one that I'm going to live forever, or there's going to be a different point when I'm
Mm-hmm.
50 or something like that where I'm going to have to kill that again and then go into a different life. It's all a part of that journey. You want to have as much success within the season that you're in your
Mm-hmm.
life. And
Mm-hmm.
I just recognize, like, okay, I'm in a totally different season now, and I'm starting off on the right foot. And hopefully, by the grace of God, I can continue to have this momentum throughout this entire season so I can maximize the blessings and the anointing that He's trying to give me through this time. And I'll live with no regrets.
Oh, I can't wait to hear that translate in your upcoming music, and
Oh,
even the
yeah.
music that you've recently put out now. You know what I'm saying? Like, the energy is different. You can definitely, and that's the thing with artists, like, especially artists, like, they evolve, and you can hear it through their music. So, congratulations on getting to this point. Like,
Thank
it's
you.
it's been amazing to see that vulnerability, and be able to be in tune with that. And shout out to what you and Aries K and the whole team is doing, productive culture, Noah James, and all that stuff. And like what you were saying at the beginning of this pod, is you guys have always made conscious music. You guys really have. And it's a testament to the patience. It's a testament to staying true to yourself, and not giving into the pressures of culture and society, of like, oh, I guess we got to make hyphy music and talk about booties and bitches and like all that
Mm-hmm.
type of stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
it's
Mm-hmm.
what happened was, you guys stayed true, and the time showed up for you. Like,
Yep.
it was like, it's now, we need the ones who have been doing this, not the fake ones, not the ones who are like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I guess I got to be doing it now because this is what's hot. It's like, nah, the authenticity that comes through is because that's genuinely who you guys have always been.
Yeah.
So it's incredible to see now you have the opportunity to facilitate these types of conversations, joining Aries K with the meditation challenge, and making
Mm-hmm.
music that is very for, like, as an escape, because there's so much stress. Like, there's so much, our bodies have experienced a lot more stress than we probably have in the past year. And the thing is, and the past couple of years, and the thing is, it's been an everyday thing. It's not like, oh, I was super stressed today and you're good the rest of the week. Like this pandemic like has put us in a position where we're experiencing high levels of stress that we're not used to. So it's
Hmm.
important to find outlets that is going to give you that serotonin and put you in a position of relaxation so you can be calm and be relaxed. So what you guys are doing is so needed. It's so important, and we're very, very grateful for that, because it's not easy leading these types of conversations, but because that's who you guys are, it's natural. It's amazing.
Yeah. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you
Yeah.
so much. Thank you for
Absolutely.
even just for, I'm just so grateful for you and your platform and all of your questions and the way that you've been really fighting on our behalf to get us known and to give us a space to speak. It's so needed, and I'm just so grateful for all the work that you've put in, and I'm always humbled and always appreciative to be on your platform. And
I
yeah, we
fully
got some
receive
good
that.
stuff coming up. We got some
I
good stuff coming up.
I
It's gonna get
fully receive that.
crazy. I'm telling you,
I'm
like
excited.
we
Crazy is
got some
good.
stuff in the works. It's crazy.
It's always the
Music.
quiet ones you got to
Uh,
watch out for. It's like they've been
ex-
quiet.
uh-huh.
Like,
Uh-huh. Yeah. It's gonna be it's gonna be insane. And like, I'm just excited for the entire community. The entire community has been working during this
oh
time. And
man, absolutely. Like it's been phenomenal to see people, reclaim their space and
yeah.
taking up that space and keeping their heads down, and it's the intention that overwhelms me. It's
Mm,
not just like, oh, we got to get shit out there because everyone's bored and we got to get these numbers up. It's like, no, we need to really put stuff out there that's going to help the
mhm.
people. And like you can see that, you can see the genuineness, and it's such a breath of fresh air right now, especially when
Yeah.
everyone's fighting to try to figure out who's genuine, what's real. It's
Yeah.
so oversaturated. So it's like it's fantastic. But
Hmm.
and also you guys have picked back up on the sound podcast.
Yes, the
The
Soundflick podcast.
Yes,
Yeah, my
yes.
guys. Shout out Ace Sincere and Skywalker Mike. Yeah.
Man, that's incredible. So that's been fun to listen to. Have you seen the new Coming to America? Have you guys
I
talked about that
have.
yet?
I have. We haven't talked about it yet, but I did see it. So we're gonna be having an episode about that soon.
Can
Uh,
I
you know,
get maybe a taste of what your opinion was before you guys talk about it?
sure. I mean, I think it was beautiful,
It was very pretty.
but unnecessary. And I'm gonna
Ooh,
leave it at that, just to
all
kind of give
right.
you guys some suspense. You gotta tune in on why it was unnecessary and why it was beautiful.
There it
But
is.
shouts out to Eddie, man. Like I'm glad to see him in a working space.
Yeah,
I think he's one of the best comedians of our time, and I think that what he's added to the culture and what he's added to hip
yes,
hop and what he's added to music as an artist and everything that he's done. He's just a creator, and it's great to see creators thrive. And I'm all
absolutely.
for that. All for that. Regardless of whether I
Absolutely.
like it or not, I'm all for creators to thrive. Do your thing, get paid off of it, enjoy it, make an impact, be responsible, and we're
Hmm.
all good. That's
Amen
it.
to that. That's awesome. Noreik, I want to thank you so much for your energy, your time, your vulnerability, especially about some of the topics that we talked about. I'm trying to really, really be less scared about having these really, really necessary conversations. So I appreciate you helping me facilitate that.
No problem.
Is there anything else that you would like the good folks to know about, to talk about, to touch on before we close this out?
Let's see. Good folks, all of you good folks out there,
Mhm.
um, do not live with a spirit of fear.
Mm.
Be courageous. Um, take time to know yourself. Trust in the source, in your higher power, and your God. Be intentional. Be responsible, and you will see the blessings occur in your life.
Mm.
And be productive. Shouts out to productive culture. Shouts out to Soundflick. We got some great things coming up. I'm so excited.
Hey.
So excited for that. And also, just shout out to the community. I implore the community to do more when these shows start opening back up. Let's not get back to what we were doing before. We need to make more of an impact. I'll tell you
Yes.
this, I'll commit that there will not be a show that I organize or run that isn't also helping in some sort of way, either some cause or some people or providing more information. We're doing a lot of edutainment. We're gonna
Hey, I
do some
love that.
education and some entertainment.
That might be
Um,
the title of this podcast, Edutating the Masses.
oh, perfect. Look at you. Praise God. All right.
That's
I'm with that.
incredible. All right, Noreik, where can everyone find you? Go ahead and plug all your social medias. Anything else that you want to plug?
You guys can find me at Thascool, Thascool. Yes, I got to Instagram and Twitter first. That is only it. No underscores, no nothing.
Hey.
Holla at your boy. I'm going to be having some content on there soon. And then follow us at Productive Culture, at Productive Culture on Instagram and Productive Culture on Twitter as well. We'll see you guys in cyberspace.
Absolutely. And big shout out to Productive Culture. They're such a just a huge corner of the community out here, because it's important to have companies helping creators facilitate their visions and executing those and just making them come to life. So doing this for so long, I was like, Jesus, production is so important. Like it's like it is like a huge thing. So yeah, definitely watching you guys work has been very motivating, and it's really inspiring. So keep doing what y'all doing. Any way that Culture Fuzz can help, the platform is your home just as much as it is mine. And that's it for today's today. Yeah, I'm hungry. It's time to go. That's it for today, y'all. Exactly. It's time to eat. But all right, guys, that's it for today. My name is Rissa SoFar. You can catch me on all social media platforms. Don't forget to follow Culture Fuzz, and we will see you guys next week. Bye.